How are you all today? My name is Nicole Yvonne, and this is Healing on the Mat. I thank you so much for being here. I thank you for joining me. If you are new, a special thank you to you. And if you have been here, thank you to you. If you like what you see here, please like, share, subscribe, and follow. And if you are new, we have been going through our journey of aligning the chakras. And today we are up to the crown chakra. Now, please forgive me for my delay. I promise you all, I recorded this video earlier and I had somewhere to be. And in the midst of editing it, I realized that the receiver died and there was no sound to the video. So it's rather late. It's 11:25, but I was determined for myself and for you all to make sure that I stick to my commitments and I work hard and diligently do what I'm supposed to do. And so after I got back from where I was, I'm taking the time to record this tonight while I put off for tomorrow, which you can do today. And so I had to start over. I hope that I get all the information in. I hope that I can give you the same great video that I had earlier, but I did everything that I could to retrieve the sound and it just was not possible. So here we are. But this one will be just as good. Anywho, we are up to the crown chakra. We are up to this beautiful place of bliss. And if you have not went back and watched the other videos, please go. There is a meditation following each and every video. And we have been through the roots. We have been through the sacral. We have been through the solar plexus. We have been through the heart. We have been through the throat. We have been through this third eye. And we are finally up to the crown. And the color in the crown is purple, or as they would say, violet. Now, originally I had this on and it was not intentional, so I thought it'd be fitting that I put the same outfit back on when I re-recorded this video. So it is intentional now. But earlier when I recorded, it was not intentional. It just happened to be divine that this is my favorite color and this is what I threw on earlier today, and it fits the color of this chakra. This is royalty. This is supreme. This is divine. This is the color of royalty and the highest spiritual awareness that there could be. And yes, it is my favorite color, lavender. If you didn't know, I love anything lavender, the scent, the clothing, the color, anything. My receivers are lavender. My microphone is lavender. I love lavender. But when we get to the crown chakra, it is at the top of your head. And I would like you to think about a baby and that soft spot in a baby's head that you're molding for maturity, and you're molding so that it shapes out properly, and you're molding so that their brain is formed right. We are babies, we are infants, and by the time, if you follow that age range that we talked about, we should be in our 40s, somewhere around the crown chakra, and we should be spiritually aware. Now what I want you to think about is that soft spot. Just think about a light shining down into that soft spot, and it is filling and radiating your whole entire body. Now, if you remember earlier, all the other lessons, we said we were pushing that energy up, all right? Well, when we get to this meditation, we are pushing the energy down. And what we want to do is push that spiritual knowledge, that spiritual wisdom, that spiritual divineness. We want to push it all back down so that we're flushing and clearing out these lower chakras. I say low vibrating, but remember I told you earlier, they are kind of low vibrating because the root is working off trauma. It's working off instinctive nature, and we have to rehone it because we've been through some things. We faced some hardships, and sexually, when we were in our youth, we wanted to just have sex freely, and it was just about sex. Whereas now we learn it's about creativity. We learn it's about birthing new things. We learn that it's about birthing new experiences. We learn that we can take that sexual energy and fuel it into something way more divine and way more intellectual and way more spiritual than just the act of having sex. And when we get to the solar plexus, we understand that it's so much ego involved. And when we get into our spiritual self, we are working to shed the ego, and then we get to this heart that is even cuter. So as we take that divine spiritual knowledge, it pushes down so that our throat speaks for wisdom, it speaks for clarity, it speaks asking understanding instead of giving judgment to a situation, and it speaks for so many other things that are more profound than the things that we do in our youth, to just frolic and to be gossiping and to be, messy with our conversation and to just talk freely without having discernment for the other person or the situation that we're in. There's so many other things that these higher level chakras produce for us. And so when we think about the crown, when we get ready for our meditation today, we want to imagine that there's light shining through that little soft spot in our head as if we were babies, refilling us and restoring us with our childhood, with our youth, with our spiritual knowledge that sheds out all the bad and keeps filling us with good light, good positivity, good radiance, good everything. And if you just started following, I believe in Jesus Christ with all my heart and soul. I told you all, while it is Christianity, I still struggle with calling it that because I don't know, even I myself have found struggles with the Christian community. And it's not that it's right or wrong, but the thing that I've learned, not even just through this process, is over my life, that spiritual awareness is a personal journey. It is a very personal journey, and that is what we are going to get into today. Just how divine it is, and that it is meant for you and him, whatever that looks like for you. And when we get to this crown chakra, we do understand that we're eliminating ego, as I said before. We do understand that we are building for something greater. We do understand that there is right and wrong. And what that looks like is, even in Christianity, that is a personal walk, because I told y'all I'm a cussing Christian, and it's not that I'm proud to boast that I curse, but what you see is what you get. And I would rather be the most authentic me that I can be, as opposed to trying to act a certain way, and then when you hear me cuss, you're like, oh, there she goes, one of those Christians that try to put on a show. Me and Jesus, we've been through so much that I feel like the cursing is minute. And it's not that I don't understand why you shouldn't curse. It's not that I don't understand that it's a bad thing, but it's a personal relationship. And he loves me and I love him. And this is who I am. And so it's not all the time. It's not like frequently, but if it slips, then hey, it slipped. And I feel like we got bigger fish to fry. But I say that to say it is a very, very, very personal relationship, your relationship with God and who you serve and how you work that out. But when we have this spiritual awareness, when we have this crown chakra, we do understand that we are molding ourselves for something better. We do understand that we're changing. We do understand that we need to get out of the infantry and into the maturity of spirituality. And are there dark sides to that? Yes. I understand that some people feel this practice to be demonic. It can be. But so can Christianity, depending on how you use it. And we're going to get into that a little further today. But everything has its good and bad. But at the end of the day, God made all things new. And when your heart has been purified, when your soul has been redeemed, when you have had spiritual awakening that changes your actions, that quickens you to want to help others, that quickens you to shed judgment, that quickens you to be enlightened, that quickens you to be compassionate, that quickens you to be softer in your actions, male or female, right? Because when we look at it from just a spiritual standpoint, femininity is birth itself, it's life, it's generating that newness, it's this softness that we all can carry. And masculinity is wisdom, it is knowledge, it is empowerment, it is strong, it is strength to be able to conquer the things that we want to conquer. And again, that sexuality is something so much more divinely created than what we experience in our infantry, in our childlike nature. It is something so much more powerful that we can't even fathom. And so today I always give scripture because my spirituality is based in the Bible. And sometimes I look at it a little differently than the others in my community. But today we're going to get into scripture, and we're going to start with Romans 2:14 through 16. And it says, it speaks of people who don't have the law but live in alignment with it internally. For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these having not the law are a law unto themselves, which shew the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the mean, while accusing or else excusing one another. In the day when God shall judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ according to my gospel. I went to Google and I said the phrase from Romans 2:15, what does it mean? And their thoughts, let me see, and their thoughts, the mean, while accusing or else excusing one another. I needed clarity to that. And it says, the phrase from Romans 2:15 in the Bible describes the infernal workings of the human consciousness, specifically regarding people who do not have the written law, Gentiles. It means that an inherent moral compass written on their hearts drives them to naturally distinguish right from wrong, leading to internal thoughts that either condemn, accuse, or justify, excuse their actions. We always, in the Christian community, I've always heard it said that even the lost people will know God. So the people in far off, remote places that cannot receive the word of God, nature shows them that God exists. Nature shows them the true way of being. Nature shows them light. Nature shows them the divine. And I disagree that it has to be, and I have my opinions, it's just my opinion. If you don't like it, this is not the tribe for you, this is not the place for you, but we can have human debate. And it is my belief, and I could be wrong until somebody proves me otherwise. The way that I see it is not that it has to be somebody in a far off remote island that never received the word. We typically will say in the Christian community, I don't want to say we, the Christian community will typically say that if you've been presented the gospel and you denounce it, then that is your key to hell, because you have denounced Christ. But moving on, in Acts 10, there is a story about a man named Cornelius. And Cornelius knew God. He didn't necessarily know Jesus. He was devout in his practices. He was very spiritually aware of an awakening. And he was very giving with his money. He was very into an upright posture, into having light, into having a spiritual connection. It just wasn't necessarily Jesus. And don't quote me. I believe it was Peter. I could be wrong. Matter of fact, let me double check. Yep, I was right. It was Peter. And so it was Peter who God came to and let him know, you don't judge people. I am the judger of the heart. I am the judger of what is light and what is not, and what is divine and what is not. And they had dinner together, and I don't know whose house it was. Let's see. Yeah. So Peter had a vision of animals, and God told him, you don't say what's unclean, I say what's unclean. In the meantime, Cornelius offered Peter to come to his home, and he sat and he broke bread with him. And that is so profound, because I told you all the other day that I like to travel by myself, and I like to go out to restaurants and bars and stuff by myself. And I primarily talked about watching people's relationships and watching couples and watching how people interact. But when I go out of the country, I love to watch other cultures. I love to watch their practices. I love to watch their way of life. I love to see how happy they are when they don't have as much as what we have as Americans. They are so profoundly happy and at peace with little to nothing in comparison to what we have. And there is this joy when you leave the country a lot of times, not everywhere, but the places that I've been, there is this joy. I went to Jamaica and I was reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and I made it my mission to finish that book while I was on the trip. And while I was at the restaurant, one of the girls, she said, that's a good book, isn't it? She said, it teaches you, doesn't it? And I said, it does. And I said, you can just order it from Amazon, you know? And she said, no, we don't get books that freely here. It's not that easy. And so I was determined to finish that book so that I could gift it to her when I left. And when I left that day, she wasn't at the restaurant, but I did leave it at the restaurant for her because she was curious. And I could tell that she was seeking. And it's not even to say that she didn't know Jesus or God or whoever you want to call it. She was seeking knowledge. She was seeking wisdom. And when I travel, I see culture. It's so beautiful. It is so, so beautiful. Not to flip the subject, but I was supposed to go to Africa this year, and my hope is that I can still make it. But with everything that's going on, I may not be able to make it. But I am 80% African. When I did my DNA testing, I am 80% African. And I want to go to Africa so bad, just to step on the soil of where my roots come from, just to experience the culture. Because in Cornelius's case, God didn't shun him. Do I believe that Cornelius got to know God for himself the way that he was supposed to know him? But God knew his heart. It says you will know them by their fruits. It says that believers will shed light. And that reminds me of the story of, recently the monks went on the walk, and I saw a video where the monk is walking for peace. He is walking for peace. And here comes this Christian interrupting his peace. You're going to hell because you don't believe in Jesus Christ. Spiritual discernment, as I taught you from the throat and the wisdom of the third eye, it teaches us discernment. It teaches us when there is a time and a place. It teaches us that even if we want to preach the gospel or disciple someone, it comes from God the time that person is drew to their truth. It doesn't come from you. And so to interrupt somebody on their peaceful journey with I know that it was meant from a place of love. I know that it was meant from a place of concern. But to interrupt somebody on their quiet, peaceful path that you think is to hell, when they truly believe that it is just a peaceful path to righteousness, it's a place and a time. And that wasn't the place or the time, because it looks so judgmental. No matter what anybody thinks or says, it comes across so judgmental. And I've been there before. I told you all, in growing and in evolving, and even in my friendship circles, I want the truth. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. We talked about that a little earlier. I want the truth. And I had to realize that everybody doesn't acknowledge that the things that I acknowledge as truth, everybody doesn't want the truth. And when we talk about this crown chakra, there are some people that are spiritually dead. They do not want to get to this place, or it's not their time. Some people don't want to. Some people, it's just simply not their time. And that's why we have to approach situations with curiosity, with non-judgment, with compassion, and most importantly, with love. Before I lost my job, I worked in the space of what was then called diversity, equity, and inclusion. As it evolves, it is now called culture and belonging. You can still use the term inclusion. We don't necessarily want to use diversity anymore. The business world, in corporate America. And in corporate America, yes, it has its good and its bad. It has its pros and its cons. But there are companies that are still trying to do the work. There are companies that are still trying to handle this agenda in a corporate way. And there's a difference in how you have to handle in corporate America. It just is. And I don't know specifics, but we do see it in the Bible where, sometimes when people went out to do God's work, they were spies and they had to tell a white lie or tell a lie in order to accomplish the work of God. And so we see where schemes can be used sometimes to empower the church and uplift discipleship and to uplift God's work being carried out in the manner that it needs to be, especially in the Old Testament. And at my job, I got to see plenty of people and speakers that were trying to just uplift positive things, uplift love, uplift righteousness, uplift justice. That's where you know right from wrong, right? It's a personal thing to say what is right and wrong in your personal life. Like I said earlier, I cuss. That's personally just, it's not a struggle for me. If we knew all the things that I've been through with God, that we've been through, maybe one day we'll get there. And I know everybody doesn't like it, but baby, I feel like me and him gonna have the potty mouth even when we make it to the Holy Land, right? But that's just me. That is my walk. That is my testimony. But it's just like somebody who struggles with alcoholism. I don't struggle with alcohol. Do I have a drink here and there? I do. But I don't struggle with alcoholism and being an alcoholic. There's two different things. And so each person has their different walk, their different struggles. And in corporate America, there are still companies that are trying. But I had the pleasure of hearing from so many different people, from so many different backgrounds, from so many different walks of life, and how they were trying to use their success and their platform for good. And one of the people that I got to hear from was Donzela Abernathy. And I don't know if you know who she is, but her father worked very closely with Martin Luther King, to the point that she considered Dr. Martin Luther King to be her godfather or even an uncle. They weren't biological family, but their families were so closely tied when the work was being done that he was family to her. And I have heard people say before that Dr. Martin Luther King was not a believer. He was not a true believer in Christ. And I never understood that until I heard her speak. And one of the things that she told us was that Dr. Martin Luther King would bring in Buddhist practitioners before they went out to have their peaceful protest. And the Buddhist practitioners would teach the people of the community how to peacefully protest. They would teach the practices of non-violence. They would teach the practices of being calm and energy work and how you can hone a situation in order for it to turn out for good and not turn out into chaos and riots and fighting and all the things that go on now. And the very first time that it broke out into a fight and that the police charged and that there was people arrested in violence, they did not have the teaching. And Dr. Martin Luther King did not want them to go that day. But other people in the camp had their agenda and they felt like it would not be a problem. It wasn't that big of a deal. They still needed to accomplish what they were trying to accomplish. And they decided to go out and do the protest without the teaching. And Dr. Martin Luther King felt so bad. He felt like he was to blame because in his spirit, he knew that they should have had the teaching and that they should not have went out that day without the teaching. I just cannot hear a story like that and not believe that my God was angry that he used a Buddha practitioner to come in and teach them something different. That was still positive, that was still acting out of love, that was still motivated by kindness. And I just don't believe that God wasn't all in and through that. And so when we learn culture, when we learn spirituality, when we learn what it looks like to be uplifted, are there good and bad practices in everything? There are. Can this work be demonic? It can. You could be taking all this low vibrating energy and let it pour out of you to be something not kind, not upright, not righteous. You could have it pour out of you and be something that I was in the past. I can tell you from my own experience that when anger arose out of me from the mistreatment that I felt like I was facing from other people, I was not nothing to play with. And I had to take a look in the mirror at myself and say, this is not who you are. And I believe all of us have had that moment. One, how do you move forward from that moment? Do you move forward still being fueled by the anger, or do you move forward changing your ways? I had to make a conscious choice to move forward changing my ways. Then two, do you move forward in judgment, or do you move forward understanding people a little bit better and understanding their hurts and their pains and their sorrows and their struggles just that much more? I had to move forward doing my best. It's not that I'm perfect at it, but I had to move forward doing my best to try to understand. But there are some people that are so broken in their pain that they don't see it. And therein lies the people that are still somewhat spiritually dead. And even if they're not dead, it's still sad that they can't understand how blessed life can still be when you get past it. The heart is an altar. It is a duplication of the altar inside the original temple, because it is the altar where you have to learn how to forgive. And I get it, like somebody told me a few weeks ago, you forgiving people that didn't even ask to be forgiven. That's true. We do have to, I told you, having boundaries is different than just simply forgiving somebody blindly, and now you are moving in an immature manner yourself, allowing them to still do things to you that they shouldn't be allowed to do. There are still boundaries that can be put in place. But forgiveness, something totally different in my opinion, because it doesn't hinder you from moving forward in your walk. It doesn't hinder you from making progress of your own. It doesn't hinder you from seeing their brokenness. Now, do you know how to deal with their brokenness? Yes. And sometimes, do you got to check a boo? Yes, you do. But you still do it in a way, you learn, to do it. When you have this, you learn to do it in a way that is still graceful. And it is still understanding their shortcomings in order for you to handle yourself better. Because at the end of the day, this crown chakra leads to growth. It leads to maturity. It leads to understanding that all things work to the good of those who love the Lord. It leads to understanding that when you recognize light, I'll leave you with this. When you recognize light, and as I do this work, I have been out, and there are days where, now it's not all the time, because sometimes I get caught up with my son and responsibility, and I got this to do, and that to do, and this to do, and that to do. But there are a lot of days that I go out and I'm very intentional to pay attention to people and be very much in the moment. And I can remember times where I went out and I told, women, and you got a good spirit. And like, there have been women that tell me it takes a good spirit to recognize a good spirit. It takes a good heart to recognize a good heart. Do I know if them people believed in Jesus? I don't. But I know how to recognize light. I know how to recognize peace. I know how to recognize somebody that is acting in kindness and generosity. And that doesn't always necessarily lead back to Jesus, just like the Buddhist monk walking in peace. And I leave the judgment to God himself. And just like we learned with Cornelius, even if it does mean that you have to believe in Jesus Christ, God is going to do the drawing in his own time, in his own way, in his own manner, and it is not up to us. The most important thing for us to do is to lead with love. And I leave you with that today. I leave you with love. I leave you with many good blessings. Even if you are somebody on this channel who does not agree with the word that I'm saying, I still wish you light. I wish you love. I wish you eternal blessings. I wish you eternal joy. I wish you eternal peace. And with that, I hope that you all come back, because I said I'll leave you with that. One more thing. This is about alignment. And today I had a conversation with a friend who has a new chiropractor, and he is a believer. And he said, we always talk about being spiritually aligned, but this spine is not aligned for many people. And he said that they come to him after the fact, when something has already went wrong, instead of coming to him for preventative work to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because this practice is all about aligning your spine so that you have spiritual alignment. This vagus nerve that runs on either side of your spine sends information to and from the root to the brain and back down. And so in order, you have to think of, I told you earlier, it's light coming in. You have to think of it like an infinity circle, right? So it looks like a little 8 figure, and it goes up and down. And so you're pushing all of that negative up so that all the positive can flow back down and settle. And so that's what's happening with the vagus nerve. Information is going up and coming down, and going up and coming down. And if you notice, we said earlier that the information, 80% comes from your gut, 20% comes from your mind, but there's still this crown. And so we want to make sure that the gut is as healthy as possible. And the vagus nerve is what helps transmit the signals. When the spine is out of whack, the vagus nerve is out of whack, and the signals are not transporting the way that they should. And we want to do this practice to make sure that we're light, that our hips are open, that our spine is strengthened. The symbol for this is a lotus flower. It's because we are blossoming to bloom as beautiful as a flower does, that God has created on a spring day. And April showers bring May flowers, and we are in the month of May. So I hope that you are blossoming. I hope that you are flowering into your most beautiful self, into your most divine creation, and into your most spiritually aligned self. And only you can do the work to understand and meditate and know what that is. And understand that meditation is not to escape. Meditation is practice to hone in knowledge and spiritual awareness and tap into the heavenly realm so that you can fix the heavenly earth. But until next time, I hope you all keep inhaling life. life. I hope you exhale death, and I will see you on the flip side.